Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source for superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Porters, and I'm joined by Sweet Sean Zakovacs from the internet.
As the 3-year-old boy I spent time with said one time, Mobo Compact!
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear, and I preferred Street Fighter 2 when I was younger.
I kind of did too, I'll be honest with you. But this week, you could have stayed in or gone out, but you can be sure that you had no excuse not to see the new Mortal Kombat that's in theaters and on HBO Max. Was it a fatality, a babality, or even an animality? Or perhaps even friendship, we shall see. But before we do want to say a big thank you to the people that make this show happen and support us over at patreon.com/HMP. Those great, glorious, and utterly attractive people get the pre-show, post-show, and, of course, the Dinger Zone. This week, we have another name to add to that list. Chris comes in at the $2 level. Sean, what do we got nickname for Chris?
Chris, first thing, again, I've been going a lot lately with first thing that comes into my head. We don't have a speedster on our crew yet. So Chris, you're going to be our speedster, and your HMP nickname is the Turquoise Trotter.
Nice.
But weirdly has a red outfit. I don't know. It doesn't make sense, but, you go with the name. Turquoise Trotter. Well, thank you. If you want to help this show just like Turquoise Trotter here and get all of the cool stuff that we do, head on over to patreon.com/HMP and join today at a rate, however big or small, make it something that is meaningful to you. And if you'd like to drop us value for value on the Breeze or Spinks app, those options are open for you as well. Links for those in the show notes. For those of you Brave Podcast 2.0 people, crank up those value sliders. And if you like something that we say, boost that bad boy away. Let's get into it, fellas. Here is the trailer for the new Mortal Kombat.
Throughout history, different cultures reference a great tournament. Mortal Kombat.
Name's Jax.
Sonya.
Liu Kang.
Kung Lao.
Scorpion.
I am Sub-Zero. Get over here!
Mortal Kombat. Theaters and on HBO Max the exact same day. Rated R.
You know what? That is one of the most concise trailers that I think really captures the entirety of a movie in said trailer.
Our listeners love concise trailers. I'll just let you know that.
That was the trailer for the Mortal Kombat, now out in theaters and HBO Max. Here's a plot line from IMDb. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. MMA fighter Cole Young seeks out Earth's greatest champions in order to stand against the enemies of Outworld in a high-stakes battle for the universe. This stars Louis Tan, Jessica McName, Josh Lawson, Joe Talsum, Hiroyuki Sanada, Chen Han, Lin, Max Young, and Marshad Brooks, who you might know better as Jimmy Olsen on Supergirl. I mean, your boy hit the gym hard. Screenplay by
CGI muscles.
Well, I don't know. Screenplay by Greg Russo and Dave Callahan from a story by Oren Uziel and Greg Russo. Now, reading those Hollywood tea leaves, this basically means that Uziel wrote he wrote on actually a Mortal Kombat Rebirth short, as well as the Mortal Kombat Legacy TV show and 22 Jump Street, which I enjoyed. He also wrote the original story, and Russo, who from what my research turned up is kind of a relative newcomer and everything, he came in and shored up that story a little bit there, wrote the first screenplay, and then they had the new Hollywood it boy, Dave Callahan, who you'll probably know from the 2014 Godzilla movie, Wonder Woman 84, and the upcoming Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings movie. They had him come in and polish up all that good stuff before it hit out the door. So much so that they got a co-writing credit for it. That takes a good bit. And directed by Stephen McQuoid? Sure. He did a lot of commercial work previously. This is his feature debut with Mortal Kombat. The movie's also produced by James Wan, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, because when I saw his name through the credit, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But I can hear people talking about it now. But Adam, Mortal Kombat is a video game and not a comic book. Well, you know what I got to say about that?
It's time for Bruce's comic book connection.
Bruce, what do we got this week?
Well, you may be surprised to hear that Mortal Kombat had not one, but 3 strains of comic book lineage. I guess first and foremost are the comics published directly by Midway, the same company that published the original game, followed by comics published by DC, which were direct game tie-ins. There was also a line of licensed comics published by Malibu, the same place that brought us Nightman, and these Malibu comics kind of went their own way, introducing its own storyline and lore that varied a bit from what the game established as canon. The Midway comics were little more than advertising for the games and were released to coincide with the launches of Mortal Kombat, Mortal Kombat 2, and Mortal Kombat 4. I guess nobody cared enough about 3. Now, Mortal Kombat Collector's Edition, Midway's comic book prologue to the original Mortal Kombat, was only released by mail order when the original game arcade version was released in 1992. Yes, 1992 was different than today. Your mom had to drive you to a place with cabinets containing video games. You had to put individual quarters into the cabinet, play the game, then like it enough that when your mom picked you up and took you home, you would write on a piece of paper, put a check inside an envelope, get your mom to drive you to the post office so you could spend exactly 22 cents to send that envelope off somewhere, then wait 6 weeks while the company mailed you a comic, and when you got it, hope you hadn't gotten sick of the game yet. Man, no wonder times changed. How many kids still gave a crap by the time they actually read that comic? And how did a kid find out about this mail order comic? Well, they actually had an ad for it pop up on the arcade game screen while you were waiting to start the fight. Crazy, isn't it? You know what else is crazy about that initial comic book? It was close to impossible to get a copy outside of the United States. Back in 1992, absolutely nobody had any idea how international postage worked. Seriously. In 1995, I spent the summer in Madagascar. I mailed a letter home, and I got back to my house before the letter did. What's up with that, Malagasy snail mail? The first comic was written and illustrated by John Tobias, the early Mortal Kombat series designer artist. The final few pages had character profiles for the 7 playable characters in the original Mortal Kombat and the boss Goro. The comic itself explained the backstory of Shang Tsung, the Great Kung Lao, and Goro, whose victory in Mortal Kombat had meant a new dark era for the tournament. But you probably never read it, because getting your hands on it involved more steps than landing the space shuttle. After that backstory, the comic flashes forward to what was then the present day, where Liu Kang and Johnny Cage are going off to fight in a tournament, while Sonya Blade is hunting down Kano and the Black Dragons. But of course, nobody knew what anybody else was up to because emails weren't commonplace at the time, and a letter took 3 days minimum to get somewhere, even just across the town you lived in. When I was a kid, I mailed myself a letter once. Yes, I was that bored in 1990. I wrote a letter on a sheet of notebook paper, put a stamp on it, walked, maybe a mile from my house to find one of those big blue mailboxes to drop the letter into. Then I went home and waited. 3 days. It took 3 GD days for that letter to travel a mile to my house. And worst of all, when it arrived, my mom yelled at me for wasting a stamp. And now, now that I'm a parent, I totally get why she was pissed off. So Mom, if you're listening up in heaven, I'm sorry. And if it's any consolation, my children are just as weird as I was. And there's 3 of them. At least you only had 1 of me. So, there was that mail order comic. That's your comic book connection.
I like to think that our podcast is being played in heaven. I think that's a good one. And by the way, John Tobias.
If our podcast is playing, it ain't heaven.
Yeah, well, John Tobias's IMDb photo is just glorious. I texted you guys a picture of it. The co-creator of Mortal Kombat. It looks like they got him mid-sentence and everything, and something just like, we're putting that up on IMDb. You're screwed now, buddy. Now, my guess is, because we're all of the appropriate age, did everybody just play the crap out of Mortal Kombat, at least was aware of it in the measure that it was?
I was aware of it. I didn't spend a lot of quarters on fighting games. And when I did, it was Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 lent itself better to my technique, which was just
spam
button mashing, because I only got to play like once a month.
Street Fighter 2 was in my commissary in college. Mortal Kombat was not. I did play it, but I didn't play it a lot.
Yeah, I played a little bit of the first one and everything, and but really I came to big Mortal Kombat in Mortal Kombat 2, which I think took Mortal Kombat and made it even better. It felt like, at least to me, from a graphic standpoint, from a playing standpoint, it just kind of elevated because when Mortal Kombat came out, people don't realize is seeing those types of characters on screen in this almost photorealistic-esque kind of way
It was
that they
weird.
did it. It was really bizarre, and it was so just advanced that, like, even if you didn't like the fighting game or anything, you had to stop and look and be like, what is this? How did they do this? It looks so different than anything else that was out there. And I think that was a real differentiator on how that got as big as it was, because it, quote unquote, looked real.
I feel like the first one was just slathered in attitude, and really the gameplay wasn't all that special. You know, I didn't play it a lot, but it was more about, you could just watch somebody else spend their quarter and get the same kind of joy, because it's all just about the blood and the weird fatalities and the occasional guy that would pop his head in and say toasty, stuff like that.
That guy's great. But I think I was kind of the same way, where I in arcades and stuff, I rarely will play fighting games. The only one that I did once really, really well was Soul Calibur, I think 2. And I just smashed that game in the arcade, but don't put anyone else against me, because I'd probably get beat super fast. I didn't need
anybody else to witness my humiliation in the arcade.
No, exactly. That's why you sit back and you watch those
thing.
other people, like you said. That's how I always did. I was just like, all right, I'll watch that. And then I can never do the fatalities properly and stuff like that. Always way too many button pushes for me. But when Mortal Kombat 2 came out, I played that on the Game Gear. Yeah, the Game Gear. That was a good one. I played that for a super long time. Played a little bit of 3, but after that it kind of fell off, and they're, up to 11 Mortal Kombat games, or like traditional 11 Mortal Kombat games.
We have Mortal Kombat 11 in the house, so I've played that one more than I played the original Mortal Kombat, but I still haven't played it a lot. But you can be RoboCop, you can be Rambo, you can be the Terminator, so it's, got some fun DLC.
Yeah, and they've done a lot of, like, fighting games themselves have gotten a really, I don't want to say a bad rap, but they've gotten a lot better over the years as far as, like, just the quality of machining that is put into them. But I was never, like, the biggest Mortal Kombat fan. Had you guys seen any of the previous Mortal Kombat movies?
I have, but I don't remember it very well. I saw the first one. I didn't see the sequel.
Yes, I am the exact same story. I saw the first one. That movie, way too many people think that movie is good, but I understand it. It's yet another one of those things where what you remember about it is that you were a kid. And so of course you're going to love it. I have many, many movies that do that same thing that are terrible, but I like them anyway.
Yeah, like I prefer the Street Fighter movie because, it's absolutely a terrible movie, but there's like moments that you're not going to forget. There's recognizable cast. It just felt like it had a little more money behind it.
Yeah, and it's Paul W.S. Anderson for that 1995 one, so it's going to be good. I love that guy.
Yeah.
He's just fantastically bad.
His second best movie.
Well, yeah, that's probably fairly close, I would think.
Yeah,
But
Mortal Kombat is his second best movie.
I think I saw the original one, but like I certainly don't really remember any of it. But man, you remember the hype. You certainly remember that iconic music, man, because boy, oh boy, was that everywhere, and really kind of became the ultimate, like, let them fight song, if you will. It's like you heard that Mortal Kombat theme, you're like, oh, somebody about to get whooped up on here. Watch out.
Do you remember the Double Dragon movie?
Yes,
vaguely.
See, that's another one that I probably, even though it's a bad movie, I like it better because it looks like a bad video game movie. Like it's what I expected.
So I think I may have watched the first trailer for this one, the little teaser trailer or whatever. I really didn't know what to expect going in outside of, just the trappings of Mortal Kombat. But I'll kind of tip my hat a little bit early here. I don't think this is a great movie, but I had enough fun for what this movie is. Does that make
did it
sense?
pass the phone test for you?
Well, I was in a theater, so yes.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah,
I actually saw this in the theater too, so it passed the phone test for me, but not for the person sitting next to me. So same result.
Why do you think that I sat in the second row when I decided to go to the theater? That didn't stop those.
I may or may not have been married to the person next to me.
Well, I can't blame her for that one. But at the same time, too, there were kids that were younger than yours in this theater, and I'm just like, seriously, why are you bringing your small children to this, pretty rated R movie?
Yeah, same thing where I was at.
I don't understand who these parents are. They're just like, yeah, my child will be fine with this, but with just people being sawed in half with hats and stuff. And quick thing, just because I did a little bit there. For if you're new to the show and everything and you just found this podcast, we do spoil everything throughout the entire movie. So do be aware that that's coming from here on out.
Now, I'm going to ask a philosophical question before we get into this, because this movie is not universally loved.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't necessarily agree with some of the criticism I've seen about it, which is that it doesn't follow the story of the game.
Okay.
Oh, get out of here.
Okay.
Yeah. Now here's what I want to know is, are there a large number of people that play fighting games for story mode? I thought it was really just the PvP part that's the fun thing.
There are a lot more than you would realize. And I found this out myself. But I will say this. Whether it's Mortal Kombat, Dead Alive, Soul Calibur, Tekken, you name it. They all have this massive amount of lore, and it's all garbage. I don't care what story it is. I don't care what what franchise that you've got. All of these stories for fighting games are complete and utter trash.
With the exception of Injustice, I agree.
I can't say that I've had seen the Injustice plotline, but by and large, growing up from this mid 90s point all the way up until, we'll call it Injustice, because I'll give Bruce the benefit of a doubt, but they're all trash. It's so stupidly bad. Anybody who goes and complains about they didn't follow the plot line for Jack,
it's like the first thing an 11-year-old could think of as an excuse for a bunch of people to take turns fighting. I mean, that seems like the storylines.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There's tons of movies and stuff that have done this before, even Mortal Kombat was a thing. You look at Bloodsport and all the kickboxer movies and Best of the Best. There's a good jillion of these things. So, it's a movie trope in and of itself that is well worn, but can be a lot of fun if done correctly.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to the fights. That's what it comes down to. So don't complain that the story's different.
That's so dumb.
And really what I picked up on, and I think the reason I picked up on this is because I used to be this guy, and thank goodness I'm not anymore. They wouldn't come out and say it, but I think what really bothered them is that Cole is not a character in any of the video games. They introduced a new character for the movie. And that's the kind of thing that used to drive me nuts with a comic book adaptation or something.
And I kind of understand that. And that's what my brother texted me after he saw it. He just goes, I'm not sure who this Cole character is. I go, I'm fairly certain he's just a made-up thing for this movie. But he's also this character, and you can see this in many different types of media. This character is the audience. This is the audience entree into this world and everything. And we're seeing all of this stuff through Cole's eyes.
Do you think it would have been received a little bit better if they had just made Johnny Cage the guy instead of Cole? I mean, it could have been his whole exact same story. You just change what he looks like and what his powers are a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think it would have, I don't know that it would have hurt any. And you've got the majority of the OG Mortal Kombat lineup, and plus some newbies and stuff like that. But you've got most of the original kind of fighters and everything. So I don't know that it needs to be anybody that's different. But again, they might have just gone that's going to be a white guy leading that one. And we, and rightfully so. They want to diversify things up and stuff. I think Louis Tan is fine as Cole, but it doesn't feel like this was, it obviously wasn't written for him, but I don't know that he brings a lot to it.
Have we seen Louis Tan before?
If I have, I can't remember any of it.
Okay. Cause that's one thing it's not a major knock against a movie, I guess, because fresh faces need jobs too. But I was kind of surprised at how I didn't really recognize that many people in this movie.
He's Shatterstar in Deadpool 2.
Okay, then if it had the hair and the headgear, maybe I would recognize him. But that's actually pretty solid credit. That was a fun character that was there for 3 seconds.
Yeah, everything else is either kind of. I don't recognize much, so I guess that's why I didn't. Nothing really registered with me, but yeah.
He's also an Iron Fist.
Okay, he was fine, but I will say this again. This is me talking here, but I am a Sonya Blade fan. Not in the game. I don't care about. I always thought she was kind of a crappy character.
You're talking about this incarnation or this actor?
This actress really. That's a good-looking lady, Jessica McDee playing Sonya Blade. And I feel like the director himself is kind of in love with her because he is shooting back to her for all of these reaction shots and everything all the time. I'm just Yeah, this guy likes her too. But
Yeah, she's an actual actress also, which totally helps.
she's been in a ton of things.
Yeah.
So she's really good. But everybody that I talk to says that Josh Lawson as Kano really stole the show. And I think that's correct.
Yeah, I think they planned it that way. I think before the movie was even filmed, they're looking at how the character was written. They're like, oh, people are going to love this Kano.
Yeah, he's the D-bag that you love to hate. And he makes all the like horrible, just, kind of good guy / bad guy, tropes and everything. He ticks all of those boxes. And he's a horrible person, and it's great.
And sometimes you look at something on paper and you have to ask yourself, do we need to turn it down or turn it up? They chose turn it up every time, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, there is no like, I don't feel like Kano is expressing himself enough in this. Like, just let him go, let him do whatever he wants. And I wonder how much of it, if any, was actually improv and stuff like that, because some of it feels like it might be. Jax, I love Jax. I thought Jax was one of my favorite characters from Mortal Kombat 2. Just because he looked super cool, with just those giant silver arms and everything, just looked really awesome, and he had some pretty decent moves and just beat the crap out of people in the games. So when we get little Jimmy Olsen here, I was kind of impressed, because he
have to confess it. I didn't until I saw the name in the credits. I didn't even realize it was him. I mean, he has absolutely, not only is this performance, it's a totally different character, but he has changed a little bit physically for this role.
Your boy got bulked, man. Because he was a skinny little guy in that first season of Supergirl.
Maybe he just got shorter, and that makes him look.
Bro is yoked, bro. Bro is yoked, bro.
They put him in a small box and be like, you can't get any bigger. You just got to go sideways now. But
somebody grab each arm and pull. That's why he's got robot arms now.
I thought the idea of the story itself kind of starting out in like an earlier time in Japan and stuff, with the guy who would eventually become Scorpion, raising his family there and everything, goes to the well, gets all the stuff, and then as a family is frozen by Sub-Zero, has to kill him. To me, that is the classic early martial arts films and stuff just playing itself out. And I love that kind of trope so much.
That's my favorite part of this whole thing is the Scorpion stuff.
It may seem like a minor thing, but something I was really impressed with for this movie, especially once it gets going and you see what kind of movie they're making, the fact that, one character speaking Chinese, the other speaking Japanese. So we have subtitles also telling us which language is spoken. And in the subtitles, you can see that they don't understand each other. And that, I just thought that was like a level of detail, because, the 90s version of this movie, they're just speaking in English to each other while they're fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives it a sense of, for as much as a Mortal Kombat movie can, it gives it a little real worldness to it. It makes you go, oh, this is the world that we live in and not some sort of, crazy fantasy world. We find out later that it most certainly is, but at least at the beginning you start to realize that this is kind of a plausible world as opposed to the Hollywood world.
And it threw me off a little bit, because before Cole's powers manifested, I was convinced he was ultimately going to be Scorpion. So I kind of like that too.
I was too, especially with the shirt thing that he gets, the little armor, whatever you want to call it, because it kind of had sort of a muted yellow sort of look to it. And I was just like, oh, is he because Dad had the trowel blade on the end of that rope and everything, which is awesome, by the way. They do a really good job with that.
Not Dad. It was like in the 17th century when that went down.
You know what I meant.
Yeah.
But the ancestor, put it that way, doing all that kind of stuff, I was like, oh, well, he's going to take up that mantle and he'll become Scorpion. But no, and I thought that was actually nice to kind of subvert my expectations on that and have the other guy come back.
Well, that's why also they created this character out of whole cloth, because there's actually some mystery to it. Who's going to end up being Scorpion? It's not your typical thing where, hey, we're going to hit the beats. And it's like watching a Star Wars prequel where like, hey, I know what that is. Amazing. Like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's nice that you don't know the outcome of this character, Cole. I have to bring this up now. This movie, what it reminds me of most is the Power Rangers movie from a few years ago.
Yeah, I can see that.
And I don't know if you guys remember how I felt about the Power Rangers movie.
I think you loved it as much as I did.
I thought it was just the best. Exactly. The things that I like about this movie have nothing to do with the video game that this movie is based on. I love the stuff. I love the stuff, all the Scorpion stuff, like I said. I know that's going to be sacrilegious to some people. I'm sure there's some history of some stupid thing they did in the video games that everyone got really, really butthurt over. This is way better. This is a way better storyline than whatever it was in the other thing. That part's great. When you have to believe in yourself enough to get your Omega power or whatever the hell thing that they call it, that part is ridiculous and stupid. I hate all of that stuff. I do like that Scorpion had to work his way out of hell in order to become Scorpion.
Yeah.
That part's cool as hell. I'm sure that's not in a video game anywhere because that's too detailed. Whenever you have like the get over here or fatality or perfect kill or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, don't care. Like, I get that people are like, yeah, I know what that is. That's awesome. I get that that's why it's there. I totally understand it. It doesn't make for a good movie. I will tell you, I had to listen to you guys talk about this movie for about like 5-10 minutes in order to remember what's in the movie, because the movie isn't bad, but it's also not good. It's completely forgetful. This is a thing where 2 weeks from now, if we're lucky, we'll remember there was a Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah.
But we're definitely not going to remember much about it. Like, I'll remember the Scorpion stuff. I think that's about all I'll remember. That and the Australian guy who is super annoying to me, but you guys seem to love.
Oh, I love to hate him because he is.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I love him. I absolutely thought he was annoying too, but I think he's the character that a certain portion of the audience is going to walk out like he's the one they remember the best.
Well, right, because he's got the most to do. You take Kano out of this, and an already fairly bland movie with Kano becomes unbearable if you have like either no Kano or Kano is written poorly. At least here he's like a brash, loudmouth, idiot who's always just trying to get one up on people. So at least you have that going for him. If he didn't have that, man, this whole movie would be a complete and utter bore.
I will say this for the Mortal Kombat purists out there. I don't think this movie would have been worse necessarily if they all just would have had to go fight in a tournament with the fate of the world, lying in the as the purse to win, so to speak.
Well, that's also the most interesting thing about this movie is that it starts in the kind of traditional tropes of these fighting championship movies and everything, but we never get there.
Yeah, there's never a tournament.
We never go to a tournament. There's some fights in a couple different locales, and that's about it.
Which is great, because they're saving that tournament for the second movie or probably
the seventh,
more likely the fourth movie is what they're saving it for.
Do you think like by the end of the week there'll be a Cole DLC you can buy, Adam, for Mortal Kombat
Cole?
11?
I can't even 100% tell you what Cole's powers are, and I love that we get them kind of like mutants in a way, where they just gotta kind of sort of wait for it.
And I also, one thing I do appreciate about Kano is they've got one really big kind of like plot hole, and he just calls it out, which is everybody gets superpowers, but one guy's power is a Frisbee hat. Like, is that a power, or did he just find a hat?
I don't know, but I like it well enough, and that is part of the fun of this, is that they do call out some of these stupid things as they kind of wink at him and go like, yeah, this is dumb. What do you want? It's a Mortal Kombat movie. Come on. What do you expect from us? Like that's what it feels like they're doing a lot of the times. Not all the times, but a lot of times they're just like, yeah, it's a Mortal Kombat movie. What do you want?
I've got to ask this question too. Why is the dude who's playing Scorpion, who is also the bad guy in Wolverine, why is that guy not in every movie ever?
He's really great.
He's amazing, man.
He's got one of those faces that is just perfect.
Now, the guy who plays Raiden, I don't know if either of you know this answer, but is he like a really big deal in Asia?
I don't know.
Because I don't think he's putting any butts in seats here in North America. and he's also terrible. So like, there's got to be a reason that he's Raiden.
Now, do we think that like Raiden was bad because like he was written that way, or is it more on the performance? Because I'm not sure.
Well, if you're not sure, then sometimes I have to think maybe the performance has something to do with it. I'll put it this way. It was not a performance that could overcome bad writing.
Well, he's been in a lot of stuff. He was in Ragnarok.
Yeah, he's one of the Friends 3.
But it looks
he's Hogan. Yeah, but I don't remember people saying, man, Hogan really needs his own spinoff movie series.
No, I don't. Beats me.
And also, he may have been in there because he's a big deal in Asia. You know, international box office is what is keeping Hollywood going this past month or so.
He's got like 100-something credits, so he's doing something right, whatever it
Yeah,
is.
I think he's probably a big deal somewhere else. But, you know, he's like, I would almost compare it to like Tony Jaa. It's great if you see him in his movies, but, you know, when he shows up in an American movie, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
so well.
he's over in like an Expendables sequel, and you're like, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, I what do you think about the effects on Raiden's eyes? It feels like that was almost done like last minute or something. It did not look like a very good effect.
He kept staring directly in the camera, so they had to do something about it. I don't know.
It was really like, I mean, because the glowing eyes on Raiden has always been a thing, but it looked like a really crappy overlay that they were just like, okay, we're going to put some white over these eyes, drop the opacity, just track from the pupils. Boom, we're done with that. Moving on to the next effect. Terrible.
And you know, once again, you say that looks like a late minute addition, and I think that might have been to mask the fact that he was given some wooden performance.
We'll
here.
just be looking at his eyes the whole time. You won't be able to tell a difference. But I mentioned in the opening about this is produced by James Wan of Saw fame, and after seeing this movie and his name popped up, I'm like, dude, that totally makes sense, because some of these kills are really, really good. Super bloody and everything, and it's what we were all wanting with the Mortal Kombat
It needed
movie.
to be there. If it's going to be a Mortal Kombat movie, you got to have the ridiculous sawing people in half, ripping their heart out, shooting a hole clean through their body. You have to have some of that in there, and he's a good guy for that.
Really good. And but yeah, when I saw like the best kill probably is the hat sawing the person there in half. Because out loud I was like, oh, whoa, because it was so good. It was gory. It was exactly what I wanted from it.
And I don't know the production history on this movie, but I get the feeling like at some point maybe James Wan was attached to it to direct, and then he fell out of love with it and stuck around as a producer. It kind of has that feel to it.
Yeah, I could see that. But I love that kind of stuff. I love the other thing that I thought was really cool, and you see it in the trailer there, is in the Scorpion Sub-Zero fight, when the blood goes in the air, Scorpion freezes it and uses it as a dagger. I'm like, oh,
that's pretty cool.
I love crap like that. And honestly, as the fights in this, and I'm a big martial arts movie fan and everything, fights by and large in this are okay. They're not great. They're just okay, but they make up for it with the kind of bloody kills here and there. But I really wish that they would have done much, much more with that, because I feel like they left a lot on the table.
I think they were closer to superhero or monster fights than martial arts fights.
Yeah, and a lot of it was very kind of uninspired. And like, it feels like the director, I don't want to say like put a lot of shots like, not the good kind where you see like Tony Jaa just fighting somebody in this giant one shot that just kind of sits there so you can watch all the glory of what's going on. Not like that, but more just like, I'm not quite sure how to cover this, so I put it in this sort of medium shot and like kind of stage it a little bit clunkily. That's what this movie felt like. Because nothing quite works too much in the fight choreography kind of thing.
Well, I would say to you that it is a million times better than what we have seen previously from this franchise.
And can I tell you, so like I said, I can't even, I don't even remember that first Mortal Kombat movie. So like I almost have, I'm sure I've seen it back in the 90s, but I can't remember.
Christopher Lambert, man. That's all I remember.
Yeah, pretty much. But that movie was written by the guys who actually did the video game and everything. So there's really no excuse for why that was as bad as it was.
You mean the guys who wrote a video game?
Don't really.
The guys who wrote had only written a video game previously didn't write a good movie.
Sounds shocking, I know. I would have liked Miyamoto to actually write that Super Mario Brothers movie that came out. I wish he'd been. I tried my best, guys. I thought it was what people might kind of want, a new spin on Mario. But it turns out they do not want that. So I got back to the games as we normally do and pumped out another 20 games that were, still pretty good.
So are video game movies still on a losing streak? Like, I thought this was good enough, but I don't think it's like the kind of redemption that video game movie fans are still waiting for.
I still think the best video game movie to date right now is the newest Tomb Raider movie. That was a good, solid movie that was based upon video game stuff, but wasn't beholden to just be a quote-unquote video game movie.
And it's still, I don't know, maybe mildly successful at the box office at best. I don't know. I don't know that a lot of people saw that. I don't hear many people talk about it.
No, I mean, it's no Pixels. But then again, what is? So nobody remembers Pixels? You don't remember that great Adam Sandler
No, we
movie?
do. We do.
No,
We do.
Well, it was the appropriate response for that.
Yeah, it's not a video game movie, though. That's the problem.
Well, it was based upon video games, kind of, sort of.
Probably Tomb Raider is the best example, the most recent one, and they are making more, like you say. The problem is that it's a different medium. And until they crack that code, I mean, it took forever to crack the superhero code. It took forever. So, you're going to have to do something else because whatever they're doing, it's almost there. Like they're really close. They're just not there yet.
I really thought they would have the big victory with Assassin's Creed with Michael Fassbender. I thought, okay, they could really make something here that people love. But
that movie is boring.
Terrible. Yeah. I honestly think that not necessarily the best movies, but the ones that have had the best, well, you got to call it crossover success, I guess. I still think Sonic and Detective Pikachu, fairly recent ones, are the high marks so far in terms of what they are trying to do.
Yeah, those are tons of fun, those movies.
Yep.
So, but I could see that. I see, again, I don't know how much there is to talk about. It's a Mortal Kombat movie.
Mortal Kombat movie with not so recognizable actors. It was okay enough that we're not tearing it apart, but not great enough that we're swooning over it. That's something hard to talk about.
Can I tell you this though? I'm sorry.
I do have to say it's nice not having that stupid big heavy actor in this movie, which is what they've been trying to do forever. We're like, oh, look, we've got a bunch of martial artists. Some of them can act, some of them can't. And then we have one like B-level celebrity being usually Raiden, So like that was nice that wasn't the case this time. Like, I don't think that anyone wants to see Captain Lou Albano as Raiden.
No.
Speak for yourself, man. I never even knew what I wanted till just now.
But yeah, you don't need all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the day, the thing that is putting butts in seats for this movie is the name Mortal Kombat. You can have the majority of these people that are in this movie you wouldn't recognize, or they're certainly not household names and everything. But everybody knows what Mortal Kombat is, and if that's your jam, you're gonna go see this flick.
French Stewart is Raiden.
I've got lightning.
Oh man, now that I was thinking more like Sean Hayes, but yeah. I think though that there's enough here that it can get a sequel. What's that?
Sean Hayes' Reptile.
Yes. I think there's enough here that this can get a sequel pretty easily. And in fact, it might get enough sequels that there's always the chance this could be like the Mission Impossible more like Fast and Furious, where, maybe Mission Impossible gets to a little bit higher form of movie making than Fast and Furious ever does. But box office, I mean, you cannot sneeze at Fast and Furious now. I think there's enough potential here that they could have put out like a couple of okay ones and then finally hit like what gives the right kind of mass audience satisfaction and run with it. I think there's enough here to work with.
On the ninth one, they go to space.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, let me throw this one out to you, just because the Fast and the Furious franchise, as you mentioned itself, really kind of shifts from what it began as into, the crazy bug nuts insane that it is right now. Do you foresee Mortal Kombat having the possibility to kind of start like that, do what we're doing here and have these like a fighting tournament thing for a couple of times, and then become some other sort of more superhero-y, for lack of a better phrase,
I think it absolutely could, man. I think you've kind of got your Justice League and Legion of Doom all laid out here. I think they could find their footing after a couple of films, and this could turn into something that's, never a critical darling, but becomes a massively successful, something you can't deny as a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
And I certainly think that they're poised for that, not only with just, the obvious thing of the kind of stinger for Johnny Cage coming up and everything, but I think the sequel is set up at this point to be a far better movie than this one is, on account of kind of the superhero sequels as we talk about them. That first movie is, while it can be good, you have to go through all of the beginning stuff, all the junky little things that you have to get over. But come the second movie, they're already on the prowl and running.
They're all going to lose their arcanas, and they have to just fight the old-fashioned way.
Yeah, something like that.
Which one do you think The Rock starts showing up in?
I think he's Johnny Cage, man. If you're smart, you're getting The Rock on this one quick.
Well, they were at least smart enough not to show like a face or anything, and pretty much just a big giant belt buckle that says Cage. And if it ain't played by Nicolas Cage, then
oh man, I got to tell you, I'm probably wrong on this one, because I'm about to contradict myself. But when they go to that Cage poster hanging up, I thought, man, that's just like when Sinestro turned yellow, isn't it? Like, we're never going to see this go anywhere.
That's always a possibility, man, because at the end of that movie, it was like, oh, dude, this is going to be great. We're finally going to get a Sinestro, and this movie is going to go from like kind of wonky and weird and everything to exactly what we want it to be. And it just never again.
And I think that what they need to do when they do bring in Johnny Cage is he needs to be like the old guy who actually survived Mortal Kombat 30 years ago. And here he's there to tell them what they need to do now. And then you could cast like a Jean-Claude Van Damme type. And by that, I mean Jean-Claude Van Damme. There's only one Jean-Claude Van Damme type that I'm aware of.
What about Speedman?
No. He doesn't belong in this.
Speedman.
Scott Speedman sadly does not have enough personality to run a movie.
I'm going to blow you away. Now, he may not be alive. Sasha Mitchell.
I don't know if he may be dead.
If he's not dead, he's killed somebody. I'll tell you that.
That much is probably true for me. But yeah, he was one of those guys that I think, from what I remember back in the day, people kind of threw his name around as Johnny Cage because he did do some fighting. I don't know how much of it, legitimate or anything.
And the video game developers really had approached Jean-Claude Van Damme to be the photo model for Johnny Cage.
Huh.
Yeah, so that's why it would be kind of cool to have him as the grizzled veteran. Plus, I watched a little bit of that JCVD show on Amazon, and he's absolutely comfortable poking fun at himself, and he could still, act as good enough. Breaking
news, Sasha Mitchell still alive, so he can do it. He's available. I'm sure he's available.
Is he on parole or still in prison? That's what we need to know now.
Oh, that is the next step. It's like he may be in the clink. Something about a girlfriend or something at some point. I remember that like forever ago. But yeah, listen, ultimately it's a Mortal Kombat film. You're either going to be on board for this or you're not. If you're Bruce's wife, you're going to be picking up that phone super quick, I could imagine, because what is this nonsense that's going on? It is a lot of nonsense. I don't know that we need the whole, why do we even have to worry about Cole's family? There's such a non-character.
It added consequences. And, if they're going to make this run 5 or 6, we know that eventually his daughter is going to win the tournament. If Louis Tan asks for an extra $12,000, he's out the door, and they've got the daughter ready to step up.
All of a sudden, the Mortal Kombat 4 opens up with a headstone. Well, turns out he died just off screen, but it's fine.
And I know he's a lot taller, but in profile, man, Louis Tan kind of had like a Tom Cruise profile going on when I was watching it too. I think that's part of why I was thinking of the Mission Impossible comparison. Like a young Ethan Hunt there.
Oh, and Goro, I was so glad to see that character finally realized in a date and time with technology that we could have that and it actually look really good and intimidating. He had kind of a Pit vibe about him. You remember Pit from the 90s?
No, but I absolutely remember the Hulk from the Marvel movies. I thought that face looked like, man, they very well could have done a little cut and paste on that face at times.
Well, he was also a famous Hulk artist, Dale Keown, I think.
Oh yeah, Kuhn.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
I love Dale Kuhn.
So he did he's my favorite Hulk artist of all time, and
yeah,
so
mine too.
And he went off and did Pit, which was kind of like Gray Hulk in a way with no nose.
No, cool. Dale Kuhn didn't do Pit.
Not Pit. And what am I? No, he did.
Oh, wait a minute. He did do Pit. I'm thinking
Pit.
of the Max.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I get those two
right.
confused sometimes too. So I'm like, did I mix those up? But yeah.
Oh man, I never confuse the Max with anything.
But I thought the character looked really cool. I love that we just made it real. We made a video game real, and I was and 12-year-old Adam was super happy with that.
You know who they should bring in if they're going to have like the old, like, hey, 30 years ago I won in Mortal Kombat? They should bring in Cynthia Rothrock.
Yes, she should have been like the original Sonya Blade, man. That is her character.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, she has so many movies, Cynthia Rothrock. She just killed that stuff in the 80s. All right, well, let's get down to it. Before we get to our big review and everything, we have to ask ourselves one of the most important questions any podcast can ask at any moment in time, and is how does this movie relate back 1-to-1 with Sylvester Stallone?
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement. Hi, Sylvester Stallone. It's Sweet Chauncey again. You know, the guy from the internet. I think you might know Dave Callahan. He's the guy who wrote the screenplay for Mortal Kombat 2021. He's actually done a good bit of writing in the last few years. And he even has 9 screenplays in the hopper, including Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Have you seen that trailer, bro? It looks pretty awesome. Anyway, I think you might know him best from the simple fact that he co-wrote the screenplay for the original Expendables, a screenplay you're also credited with writing. But it forces me to ask the question: did you actually though? How much did you actually write? Did you get a fully recognized script and then you changed a few bits of dialogue? Do you think that's fair? Do you think Dave Callahan finds that fair? How do you guys get along? Does he send you and your family a Christmas card? Look, I'm not here to bust your chops. I'm here to connect this movie back to you. And I think it's fair to say that I've already done that because Dave Callahan is the guy that wrote Mortal Kombat 2021 and co-wrote The Expendables with you. And there it is, Mr. Stallone. That's how you're connected to this movie. I hope to hear from you soon. This is the 352nd time we've tried this bit. We're going to try to do better next week. Thank you. Your new best friend, Sweet Chauncey from the internet.
I look because I was curious because I've read Thomas Lennon and Robert Ben Grant's book about screenwriting and everything. So I was like, let me look. I know how to read the titles for credits and everything. So I looked at the Expendables here, and I purposely didn't say any of that because I wanted to leave the glory, of course. But Dave Callahan is he has the story written by, and the screenplay is by him and Sylvester Stallone. That's A-N-D. And when you see the "and" in there, that means Stallone was the punch-up man in the script.
Right.
Yeah. So
yes, that's what I figured. I figured that he already had the fully recognized script and then was like, oh, I'm going to change a couple
he's
of
like,
bits of
look, I'm
dialogue here."
writing this, I'm directing this thing. I might as well write a little bit of it too, just so I can direct what I wrote because I'm a genius.
Paul Hogan will tell him it's a good thing he wasn't a producer on the film or he wouldn't have been able to do that.
He might be a producer. I don't know. All right. Well, let's get down to it. Here Movie Podcast has our own patented Robin rating system. If you'd like to check that out, head on over to our Reddit, reddit.com/r/Here Movie Podcast. Bruce, where does Mortal Kombat 2021 fall in the Robin rating system for you?
Surprising nobody at all when I say it's okay, man. It's a Damian Wayne. You know, it's just right there. The fights are fun. Some people, anybody who loves or hates this movie too strongly, the issue's with them, not with the movie. It's fine.
Yeah.
Sean?
Stephanie Brown for me. It's nothingness. This movie is just, it exists. It's going to exist forever.
It insists upon itself.
It's like it's unflavored cotton candy.
They're going to make more of these. You're going to keep watching them, and they're going to be boring to people who don't give a crap about Mortal Kombat. So it's a Stephanie Brown.
For me, it's just Damian Wayne. It's right there in the middle. It's not terrible, but it's not eye-rollingly bad either. There's a couple times where it is just like, yeah, this is one of them types of movies. But I enjoy that. That's what I'm here for. And that's what this feels like, is a rainy Sunday movie. You gotta kill, an hour and a half or however long this thing is. It went by pretty quick. So it's nice. It's disposable. You get a couple of good kills. So when you start hearing the music go up and the punching start to happen, go ahead and watch the screen for that. And then you can just listen to the other stuff that's going on. Because quite frankly, it's neither here nor there. But for what it is, I feel like it was a really fun time. And I am looking forward to what they're going to be doing next. Because I think the next movie is where this franchise could start to take off. All right, so that does it for this episode. We'll talk about what we're doing next week in just a moment. In the meantime, Bruce, where can we find more of your work on the internet?
Well, if folks want to go over to YouTube, they can see that I reviewed a new release comic book movie that I don't think's ever going to be reviewed here on HMP. So I threw up my own little 15-minute review on it. And that movie is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba, the movie Mugen Train.
Why didn't they pick the long title?
How would that have gone over if I pitched that for here, Sean? Just title alone.
I would have been more apt to want to see that than Mortal Kombat, quite honestly.
Yeah, it's actually a good movie. So if you want to see me talk about that on YouTube, go to youtube.com/c/Bruce Leslie.
Oh, but I would have asked you, did any of your friends have a part in this? That would have been my first question.
No, but my daughter wanted to see it, so we went to see it.
What do you got? Back end points? What's going on over here? I don't understand. Sean, what else?
You can find us at the very last episode of our podcast, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 30 Questions. That's a show where, take a guess what that's about.
We ask 30 questions about The Falcon and the Winter Soldier every week?
That's it. That's exactly right.
You'd think I'd know, having been on the show for as many episodes as I have. Yeah, and if you want to continue to stay subscribed to that one, in a couple weeks after that, it's changing over to Loki 30 Questions. So we're going to have some fun over there as well, so check that out. And I'm back at doing the Film Find, man, putting out a couple of short episodes a week. It's really fun stuff, so check that out wherever you find podcasts. Now, if you'll remember, this week is usually our Patreon select choice, but we asked our supporters over at patreon.com/HMP. They told us that we could push it back for a week to cover this new release, and as such, the month of May will be another Listener Appreciation Month, as we'll be doing two votes in the month of May, one at the beginning and one at the end. Here are your choices this go-round. This is an eclectic group. I like it. We have 2 more episodes of Nightman. If you want to go back and listen to our original Nightman episodes, do that. The Toxic Avenger, Griff the Invisible, which I'm to understand is about a guy named Griff who is invisible. And 2 episodes of Winona Earp, or Paperman from 2012. What's Paperman about again?
It's Ryan Reynolds.
That's right.
It's a weird looking thing.
We don't know what those are, but we're going to put all 5 of those up there at patreon.com/HMP. So no matter what level you are at, you can go ahead and vote on that. Steer the ship, man. We're just riding in it. We want you to steer the ship for a change. So do all that kind of good stuff. Patreon.com/HMP. That'll do it for this episode. Join us next week when we're talking that Patreon supporter vote winner for Sweet Sean's Kovacs from the internet. Bruce Leslie, I'm Anna Portress. Stay super, everybody.
Bye, Marty and Evie.